Alright, so it's on, so whenever you want to start talking.
Hi, this is Krista Cesare from the C2D1 Haunting. You're listening to The Shadows.
Your source for everything paranormal. Para X.
Hi, this is Hollywood Hunt writer Marla Brooks, and you're listening to the Para X Radio Network.
The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
Welcome to another Monday night here on the Shadows Radio. I am Rebecca.
I'm Cara.
And we are so glad to not be,
in Philadelphia?
Well, no, we are in Philadelphia, but I think it's more we are glad to not be under all those light poles and other things.
Under the Ritz-Carlton,
yeah,
roof and all that stuff. Yeah, sure.
So, for those of you who do not know or are not from this country, there was a giant sports game this weekend called the Super Bowl, and the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl for the first time, I think, ever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the first time, second time or third time they've been in the Super Bowl in like a bajillion years, so everyone was like super excited. And of course, Philly being Philly, they celebrated happiness and stuff because,
They celebrated happiness, not so smartly.
Well,
anyway.
Let's be fair. Okay, so most people celebrated calmly. They did it properly. They went out and they banged pots and they yelled and they screamed and they had fun. Then there was the idiots. But unfortunately, the idiots are the ones that get on the news, and they're the ones that the rest of the country sees, and then, we get mocked incessantly for it. We're also the same city that still gets, told that we threw snowballs at Santa Claus in the 60s. So, the world has a very long memory for stupidity.
Yes. Well, what can we do? I mean, it is what it is.
Well, good job, Eagles. Congratulations. I'm a Steelers fan. I was in a house full of Eagles fans last night, texting with a bunch of in-laws who are Patriots fans. So it was a very interesting evening for me. I was wearing gray. I just want to put that out there. I was not wearing colors for either team. I was wearing gray. I was wearing a sweatshirt with no logos because I didn't want to be accused of being a fair weather fan. So I just had to put that out there.
Oh, that's good.
Well, that was the first thing my in-laws from Boston, they were like, "You're a fair weather fan, aren't you? You're wearing, Philly colors." I'm like, I'm really not. I'm wearing a gray sweatshirt and jeans. There's no coloring here. I even have my Steelers socks on just because they happen to be the ones I pulled out of the drawer, but it's like completely unrelated. So anyway, I just want to put that out there, make sure that made it into the ether because I don't think people believed me.
What can you do? I mean, it's the same thing. Like, I'm wearing green underwear, but it's just the one I took out of the drawer today.
Well, originally I was going to put on a green a green sweater that I had, and I was like, oh, I can't go there. Like, that's going to end badly for me because someone's going to say, oh, you're an Eagles fan now. I was like, no, it's just what happened to be on the top of the clean laundry. Like, that's how things work. All right, so enough about us. We're boring, and we're going to introduce our guest this evening. So. I got an email from a very good friend of ours and a very good friend of Para X, Danielle Stimson, who is a former host on the show, a very good friend of mine, who said, you need to talk to this person. This person is amazing. She's got great things to talk about and amazing potential and to be an amazing guest and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, awesome. I like when people tell me to do my job. That's great. And I don't even mean that sarcastically. I mean that totally seriously. Like, if people want to do my job for me, I'm all for it. But I got in touch with her. She was like, yeah, I'd love to be on your show. So from her website, it says that She is actually the founder and proprietor of Truthseeker Astrology. She began her studies with a Philadelphia-based master astrologer with over 25 years of experience. And after intense self-directed study, also added tarot, which greatly enhances the ability to connect with and trust intuition, and began reading natal charts for friends and family and select clients, and then moved into the Truthseeker Astrology. And we'll find out more about that entire journey, because that sounds like an incredible journey. But our guest this evening is Miss Tieshka Smith. Tieshka, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here tonight.
Are you also anywhere near the chaos of last night?
Oh yeah, I live in Southwest, so there was mayhem and noise and what sounded like the aftermath of war. I think I may have heard gunshots.
Aye.
What sounded like air sirens, which I'm sure weren't, but sounded like it. And I just decided I'm going to bed. Because I'm not originally from Philadelphia, so I'm not. Sadly, I'm not an Eagles fan, so I can't revel with folks about the victory last night. I mean, I'm glad, but I'm not like woo, because I'm not a fan.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you, where I'm at the same point.
Yeah.
Like, congratulations, that's good to know. Let me know when you catch up to the Steelers, because that's where I am.
Oh, that's where you are?
I am, yeah. So,
nah.
No, not Steelers.
I'm originally from Chicago, so I am a loyal Chicago Bears fan.
You might be one of like 6 that are left. But that's cool.
Probably. I'm sure there are a lot of like folks who are not openly, but I tend to be very open with my allegiance. So yeah.
All right. Well, I'm glad you survived the mayhem and that you're still around to talk to us this evening. So let's start with this journey that you went on. So at what point in your life did you kind of realize that you had some kind of intuition or ability to kind of connect with whatever power it is that, kind of lets you do what you do? Was that a vague question? That was a terribly vague question. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I was actually thinking about that earlier today. So I think it started for me when I was a child. And folks tell me that I had a pretty vivid imagination, but I also had this very vivid dream life. And a lot of times it would be difficult for me to figure out what was like real and then what was, dream space. And I still struggle with that even now as a middle-aged adult. But I would find myself getting really confused, like upon waking up. And I think that awareness came probably around like 7, 8, 9 years old. Like I would just wake up and be like, am I still dreaming, or is this like time to get up and go to second grade life? And I remember specifically falling asleep around 7 or 8 and feeling like a demon came and visited me or something, and I only had that happen one more time during my childhood, and it was around the age of 15 or 16. Like literally something came to me while I was asleep and scared the bejesus out of me. So during that time when I was 7 or 8 or 6 or 7 or whatever age it was, I had a hard time getting to sleep. Like I really was afraid of going to sleep because I didn't know what was like on the other side. And telling my parents about it would have gotten the speech of, toughen up. What are you scared of? I was, kind of teased as a kid because I was pretty sensitive. And so I learned very early, like, to keep my feelings kind of bottled up as a kid.
Okay.
Yeah. And a lot of that, I think, came through my dreams, like trying to process a lot of those repressed emotions and, just all the things that you would, have a chance and space to feel as a kid. I just didn't. So that's kind of like, I think my first realization that something else was going on with me. Pretty young. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say second grade is pretty young to be making those distinctions, and you had to show a true maturity of spirit to be able to, step away from the cartoon and go, okay, this is something different going on, and there's something else. So that's pretty impressive, and shows definitely like almost an old soul, I guess. That would be how I would describe it anyway.
It's kind of hard to say. I feel like I have been here before, and like this is maybe a question you have, but I experience astral travel a lot.
Okay.
Even more so now that I've kind of crossed over and had a couple major midlife transits. Like I'm not afraid of crossing over. I mean, I actually relish it. It's like a break from this really stressful dimension that we live in right now. It's just chaos and confusion, and it feels like it's all designed to wear people like us down who are working, with energy and with symbols, and it's all. I feel like it's all designed to kind of wear you down, so you just throw your hands up and give up, and then that way you can't help awaken other people. So at night when I go to sleep, like I welcome being able to have really lucid dreams and kind of take a break mentally. Whereas at first it was just kind of like, what the hell? Where did I just go? Who just landed on my chest, or whose chest did I just land on? Like I would have dreams like that, and just be deathly afraid of going to sleep. Whereas now I'm like, yeah, sleep is great. Sleep is a good thing. I love sleep. So I don't really know what that means in terms of like, do I have some kind of death wish or what? But I'm not afraid of it anymore.
So how did you come to that point where you were no longer afraid of it? Does it just become so common that you were like, all right, this is another thing that I'm doing? Or was it, something deeper where it was like, okay, I don't know, visit from a spirit guide or something, you know what I mean? Like, was there something that kind of guided that realization, or was it just experience?
I would have to say that for me, the realization didn't come through anyone else. It was kind of like it was a door that was always open, and it was basically up to me to decide that I was going to walk through it. And so, like, all these things that happened when I was a kid, my dreams, and, feeling like I'm having these conversations with other energies, being told that I was weird and things like that. You still want to have friends, and you want to have a normal life. So you just kind of like, you see the door over, out of the side of your eye. You like, okay, there's something over there, but I want a normal life. So I'm going to act like what it means to be normal. And so I pretty much would spend my time journaling and writing things down, and then just trying to have like a normal childhood, like doing all the things that quote unquote normal kids do. I tried, I played sports and I was in clubs, and I still felt like I wasn't being my fully authentic self, but I felt like if I did behave in the authentic self that I needed to be, that I wouldn't have friends.
Yeah. Okay.
And when you're like 15, 16, going into your early 20s, like that's important to have friends, and it's important to date and things like that. But I ended up, every time I tried to like get into a group or whatever, I always found myself getting like cast to the side. And like in retrospect, I realized that was preparing me for this life of kind of working by myself, working in this realm of astrology and tarot and dreams and things like that. You can't really have like a whole bunch of distractions.
Okay.
And so I think inadvertently, like my life leading up to this point when I really just transitioned into doing this work a lot more deeply and fully, I realized, like being an outcast, like you kind of have to be that to do this. Like, you can't just be buttoned down, like trying to fit in, capitalist or whatever. I mean, you could, but I feel like you just have to have like an openness and a willingness to access or be accessed by whatever energies or spirits that are trying to get to you. And you just have to let it go. And leading up to that point of realization, like, I think I wasn't ready to let go and just be, because I wanted to be normal. I wanted people to think of me as normal. But every step of the way, I was reminded that I wasn't normal. So, and that kind of happened in high school when my English teacher, like, individually pulled like 4 of us out of her class. And we were all like, oh shit, we're in trouble, right? Are we? And she's like, no, you're not in trouble. I'm pulling you out and having this conversation with you after school to tell you that I think you have something special. I think you have a gift, and I want to help you develop that gift. And that gift was really, it really helped set the tone for being comfortable journaling, like honestly journaling, because I've gotten away from that, come back to that, gotten away from that, come back to that. And I'm doing it actively now to try to process a lot of things. But I think without her guidance, I probably wouldn't journal as deeply as I do now. Mm-hmm. And like, I think she was like a spirit guide in a human body. Like, I really feel like she was like positioned to help me at a very critical point in my life. I was in high school. I was like a sophomore, junior, and I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life. And after that experience, like, every week we would get together after school, and she would have us read something that wasn't on the curriculum, and we would write about it, we would talk about it. And it wasn't like the talks that you had in class. These were like real talks, like talks that you couldn't even have with your parents, like really honest, gritty, like no holds barred kind of talks. And it really helped me decide that it was okay to have an emotional life and an intuitive life. And I think without her, I probably would be really, really stuck right now, like stuck in a very major way. Like, she was the first person in my consciousness that really tried to help me move in a different direction. So yeah, high school, Miss Krasinski, it's all good.
Well, no, everybody needs that kind of guiding light at some point, whether they realize it or not. Somebody steps into their path and they say, even if it's like a passing comment that they make of like, hey, you would be a really great insert, career here. Right. It just starts you that thinking. And even if they don't have a significant, role in your life per se, they kind of put that seed down. It's kind of like, oh, well, maybe I should think about that. So, it's great that you were able to kind of develop that relationship with, and, kind of get a meaningful connection with her because of that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, say you cut off for a second there. Go ahead, finish your thought.
No, I was going to say that, like, she's like you said, many people will cross your path, but I think for me, it's just what ends up happening is like I'll put it out there, like I'll meditate or I'll pray about it or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I have to be careful not to put things out there specifically and clearly, because if I'm not clear, junk comes back, and then I have to deal with junk. So I'm like very clear in my intentions and my requests and my desires, and like I had to learn that a very, very hard way. But yeah, Miss Krasinski was just like, she's the first of many guides that I've had over the years.
So let me ask this. So let's jump forward a little bit to when you decide to kind of set up your readings and, hang a shingle, so to speak, kind of start your business. How do you decide? So, between traditional kind of tarot readings, and then you've got more traditional tarot readings, you've got kind of psychic readings, using that term very loosely. where people talk to spirit guides, the spirits talk back kind of thing. And then you've got something that moves along the lines of like astrology, where you're reading charts and things like that. How did you decide I want to do the charts?
So I had, like, in 2008, there was a lot of crap going on in my life. And my marriage was coming to an end, and I didn't like the job that I had. And I wanted to understand why I was kept making these really bad decisions about my life. And I'll just preface this by saying that on the surface, like, anybody looking in would be like, oh, her life is great. Mm-hmm. And, it was kind of like, of course, I want it to be normal. Of course it's going to look great. But underneath, it was like a lot of rot and a lot of just dead weight, dead energy, dead everything that needed to be pruned away and things like that. And so I had always, like, consulted, like, sun sign astrology books. I had a few in my library collection at the time. But it never clicked with me, like the things that I was reading about Virgo. Because I'm a Virgo. I have the Sun, Mercury, and Mars in Virgo. And it's kind of mixed up in this T-square with Saturn and my moon. And so I always felt like, oh, this, I'd read something for Virgo either in a book or in a newspaper, and I'd feel like, no, that ain't me. I don't feel like that kind of Virgo that I'm reading about. And so when everything was coming to a head in 2008, transit Uranus and transit Saturn were double teaming on my Virgo stellium and my Sagittarius moon and my Saturn in Gemini. And it felt like the bottom of my life fell out from under me. And so I wanted to understand why I was making these bad decisions. And so that's when I took to the internet. Because that's what you do when you have a problem.
Absolutely.
In 2008, you go to the internet.
That was new to me. The internet, going to the interwebs to solve problems. I had no idea. Took me 10 years to figure that out.
So 10 years ago, wow, it's just amazing, like 10 years, how far I've come. Took to the internet, and I cast my first chart on astro.com. I cast my own chart, and I was like, oh, wow, okay, now we're talking. So I decided that there was a mystery to solve, and I love mysteries, and I love puzzles, and I love problem solving. Like that part of Virgo, yes, I am a problem solver, and I was going to fix my life. So I'm reading my chart, and I'm like, oh, okay, so I have this placement, I have this plan, and I have, what do all these lines mean? And that is kind of how I started getting a handle on how my chart was a roadmap for why I was having so much trouble in relationships, and why I felt like I had like competing voices in my head. Like when I first realized I had all these planets in Virgo, it felt like for a long time I had three voices that I was hearing. So I was hearing my Sun in Virgo, I was hearing my Mercury in Virgo, I was hearing my Mars in Virgo. And one of the things that I learned once I started studying is that when you have a stellium of planets, the goal is to try to integrate all of them so they work better together. And I'll be honest, it's taken me like 10 years to, really master that. But when you have all these competing voices, it feels like competing interests. And so, like, I spent a lot of my life trying to, make this planet happy, make that planetary energy happy, that one and this one and the other one. And so my first task through my study was to try to quiet my mind, to really quiet it and get all these planetary energies to work together a little bit better. And so that's when I began studying with my teacher. That's kind of what he set out to do, to help me be able to work first with the Sun, Mercury, Mars, stellium, and then with my moon in Sagittarius, and so on and so forth. So, like, I feel more Sagittarian than Virgoan. And that's why I use the name Truthseeker Astrology to reflect that sort of search for like a higher truth or, you know, more universal principles, always exploring, always asking questions. Like once I stop asking questions and being able to answer questions, I get bored. And so one of the things I love about astrology and setting up this practice is that every client offers a new opportunity to learn, a new opportunity to grow, a new opportunity to answer questions, to use astrology as a tool to be able to help people. And it in turn helps myself because usually people are sent to me who need to teach me a lesson as well. And I'm finding that more and more and more. Like you learn lessons with Saturn being very prominent in your chart. You got to be open to learning lessons. And I'm a better master now than I was when I started in 2008.
All right, so let's take this back a step for some of our listeners that might not be very familiar with charts and astrology and things.
Sure.
We're not talking about the predictions that you read in the paper underneath the comics, right? We're talking about something much deeper and much more intricate, right? So
absolutely.
Where do you start with somebody? Like, is it just your birthday? Do you need, you know, a time of day that they're born? Like, what information do you need from somebody to start building this framework of who they are?
Well, it depends on where they are. So I had someone contact me recently about doing a reading. And like with my natal reading, I don't necessarily need a time of birth, but I definitely need a birth date. And I definitely need a city and state or country of birth, because that helps set the angles of the chart. Because every person was born in a place. And so latitudinally and longitudinally, we were all born at a specific place. And if we know it, a specific time. And the ascendant is a representation of time, and the midheaven is a representation of space. And so I strongly encourage people, if you can find your birth time, please share that with me because it helps me get a more accurate horoscope map set for you. But I don't necessarily need it. I can read solar charts, and I've done that. And I'll ask specific questions to try to get a handle on like personality characteristics, you know, quirks and things like that help me get closer to a possible rising sign or ascendant for those who don't know what that is, which in turn helps me get closer to a potential birth time. And so with natal astrology, like I said, you don't need a birth time. But once you cast a chart just for like a natal reading, there's so much information that you can glean. Like you can look at, one of the things that I trained on is gleaning a whole bunch of information just from the placement of the sun and the placement or potential placement of the moon. And if I know that, then I can figure out the rulership of those two lights. We call those the lights in astrology, the sun and the moon. Once I know that, once I know the sun, the moon, the ruler of the moon, and the ruler of the sun, there's a lot of information that I can share with the client just with that alone. And then, like, if I have a time chart, then I can go into a whole lot more advanced interpretive techniques. But just for a general reading or basic reading, sun, moon, that's all I need. And it answers a lot of questions because people don't really realize that they live through their moon sign. We're striving to become our sun, but technically we're our moon. And the moon can be completely different from the sun sign. That's why I say, yeah, sun sign astrology is fun, but we can go deeper. And wouldn't it be fun to learn what your moon sign is? And that would explain why you do this and why you do that without thinking, why you respond to certain things without thinking, why you have a certain relationship with your mother, how you relate to home, things like that. We can talk about that just from that alone.
So this question came in through our Facebook page, and thank you guys for, chiming in here. They wanted to know, for somebody who's kind of only ever seen, zodiac sign kind of personality descriptions and things, for what would, and I'm sorry, I'm reading this and trying to paraphrase it at the same time because it's about a 25 paragraph question.
It's an essay.
It's a little bit in depth here, so I'm gonna try and get to the point here. But it was kind of like, for someone who is not well versed in all this kind of stuff, are they looking to you for information about their past, information about their present, or are they looking to you to maybe get some guidance on the future, or is it a combination of all three?
I think it's a combination of all three. But I think that, like, when I entered the space, I was looking for information about the present. Mm. Like, why was I making decisions in the way that I was making them? Obviously in the past, but in the present also. And how can I not make these same mistakes again in the future? So it's kind of like, depending on the question that you're trying to ask, you reach back into the past. But I think the questions that we ask are really about here and now. And so when I'm working with a client, I'll not only just cast their natal chart, if that's what they're looking for, if they want me to do some more advanced work with it. I will cast a chart of the moment that we've decided together that we're going to sit down and look at their chart. Because I've learned that will give me a sense of what that person is looking to have answered, even if they can't articulate it. Even if they're like, I don't know, I just want to know. I'm like, okay, so I'm looking at this chart at the moment, and your 7th house has like 8 planets in it. So I'm thinking maybe we should talk about relationships. Or like you may have a really tense aspect between your sun and your moon, and the sun may be in the 1st house and the moon may be in the 10th house. So I'm thinking maybe there's a conflict internally between your personality and how you see yourself and how other people may see you and your career. Like, maybe we should talk about that. And usually, not all the time, but usually that chart of the moment will help get a conversation started. And it's pretty hard to argue the chart of the moment, because when we all decide to get together and meet, that energy that blends together will reflect in the chart. So I'm represented in the chart, the other person is represented in the chart, and depending on where the planets fall, that's typically what we're going to talk about in the session.
So then let's...
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, so how do we tie in then the tarot card reading as well? So does that add to what you're seeing in the chart, or is that is it like another thing that's offered? Kind of how does that all tie together?
So I will, like, even if a client doesn't ask for like a tarot card spread, like I typically just do a 3-card, because I don't like to complicate things with a Celtic cross spread and all that. Mm-hmm. I try to keep things simple. So even if they don't ask, I'll cast, I'll throw down a spread just to see kind of what, if there's some resonance between what I'm seeing in the chart and what I'm seeing in the cards. And it kind of keeps me honest. But I think when clients ask for it, they want a different layer of interpretation. Like they want to be assured that what they're hearing from the chart reading is happening on a quote unquote, it's more intuitive level, because I think that a lot of people don't feel that astrology can be intuitive. They think, oh, it's mathematics and it's geometry and it's, all these angles and, the rules. And I'm like, no, yes, you have rules guiding you, but the way that you should be approaching it is allowing the planetary alignments and aspects to talk to you. And so, in a lot of ways, I'm channeling what the planets want to say. And it's all very intuitive. And then I throw down some cards just to see if it's all kind of syncing together. If there's some synchronicity, that's great. Sometimes the cards will raise a different kind of question, and that's great too. So then it's an opportunity to talk a little bit more. But when people come to me, they want a chart reading. And You know, the tarot for me is really about keeping myself honest. And then with more advanced clients, you know, they'll ask for a tarot reading just to kind of be sure.
All right. We got another question that came in from our chat room from a user who asked a question and then left for some reason. But wanted to know, do you use connection with like spirit guides and kind of like the psychic medium aspect, or is everything that you do kind of on the chart?
I meditate and I ask my guides to help me. But I'm an astrologer, so I'm also, you know, respectful of the rules. And I think I use my spirit guides to give me clarity about, not necessarily about the chart, but about the person that I'm working with. Because sometimes you get skeptics, like they want to test you and see, oh, you know, you real, or you know, authentic, or you this, or you that. And my spirit guides are pretty good at helping me suss out when people are trying to run game on me. And so that's when I will summon, you know, I will call on them to kind of give me clarity. And that'll come through dreams. It'll come through like little things that just kind of happen. You know, if I'm looking something up, you know, just quirky things that happen when you work with spirit guides. You know, they speak to you. And then I'll just use that little bit of information to kind of guide me in how I work with my clients. And sometimes that comes through, you know, an extra amount of empathy, an extra amount of, you know, comfort, you know, say this word. Like I'll listen to them, you know, the spirit guides in a session tell me, say this, say that to them. And it goes beyond, you know, talking about the chart, talking about the planetary alignments that are present in the chart. It goes beyond that to how do I connect with this client? How do I make them feel comfortable? How do I make sure that I have their trust? And, you know, the spirit guides will tell me, say this one thing to them, and that'll help relax the client, or that'll help, you know, give them peace of mind. So it's a lot going on in my readings. You know, I'm not really like, how can I say it? I'm not performing these things. They're just kind of happening. Like, I think sometimes people get skeptical because sometimes we put on performances, and I'm not knocking anybody, but,
Yeah.
you know, you think about popular culture. I was watching this movie, and, well, no, it wasn't a movie. It was a series on Netflix, and this couple was at a carnival. And, of course, you know, there are fortune tellers at the carnival. And so they go into this tent, and the man is, you know, shuffling tarot cards, and he has, like, you know, the fortune teller garb on with the turban and, you know, the crystal ball, and he's all like, I'm going to tell your future, and, you know, that whole thing. And so...
Wait, you don't have a crystal ball? I'm disappointed.
You know what? I thought actually about buying one.
No, girl, you know what you need? A disco ball. That's what you need. Because... I was thinking about doing a whole uniform, just get the turban and like a cape and... You get all that and you'd be like, all right, this is not the real me. Let's get they do think it's like a whole performance. I think that's a lot of people think that's what it is.
Yeah.
That's what they expect to see.
Right.
But I didn't know that doing astrology you would have spirit guides. How is that different from someone who has spirit guides and calls themselves a medium or a psychic?
You know, I'm not going to say, because I don't know what it's like to be a medium or a psychic, but I do know what it's like to be intuitive. And if you believe in intuition, it's speaking to you all the time. It's whether or not you want to listen to it. Mm-hmm. And what I've learned over the years is to listen, because when I ignore it, it comes at a great price. I mean, I've been devastated by the times when I haven't listened to my intuition. So when I'm doing a reading or I'm talking to a client and we're talking about their chart, I always have like one ear in the conversation and my heart in the conversation, but it's also listening for messages from my spirit guides telling me how to connect better with the client. Because at the end of the day, like, I can read the chart in a very clinical manner, and it's straightforward, and like you have your ascendant here, and you have your, you know, in your first house you have a bunch of planets, and it means this and that and the other. But most people are coming to light workers and healers not because they want a clinical experience. They want connection, and most of the times they're having a crisis. They're scared. They don't know where to go next. They've kind of exhausted all kinds of other options, and they need answers. And they don't need like technical like lectures, and you know, they don't need all that sort of jargon. They don't need all that. They want help, and they want to understand. And I think for me, my spirit guides help me to communicate in a way that they will understand and that they will connect with. And it's just kind of like an art. Like, for me, it's an art form at this point.
Because it's over the years you perfect it, kind of.
Yeah. Like, I'm not, like, I'll take a lot of notes before a session. I'll write a whole bunch of stuff down. I have guiding questions to ask the client. But once we sit down and that energy is shared between myself and the client, it could go a whole different direction. And I have to throw those notes, you know, cast them to the side and just flow with it.
I don't know about you all, but I felt you were speaking right to me, so I'm signing up, and then I'll let everybody know how it went.
Well,
Thank you.
There's a good segue. So why don't you take that moment and let everybody know how they can find out more about you, about the services that you offer, and also where they can sign up for readings.
Okay, so if you go to our website, truthseekerastrology.com, you can do everything on my website. You can schedule a session. There's a link in the top left-hand corner that takes you to a short questionnaire that I ask people to fill out to kind of give me a sense of what they're looking for and what they'd like to book and how soon they'd like to book a session. But while you're on my website, you can click on the social media icons. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. You can read my bio. There is a link to all descriptions of all the services that I offer. If I'm leading a workshop, which I will be hopefully doing another workshop next month at Learn Reiki Philadelphia, Danielle Stimson's wonderful studio in Old City. I did a 3-part series back in January that was really nice. And it was kind of like a let's go beyond your sun sign astrology class. So yeah, you can read about the services I offer, any workshops that I have scheduled, my bio. You can link with me on social media. And if you've had a session, I have a link to a survey that I encourage people to fill out. I love feedback. I'm definitely a Virgo. I'm always about improvement and, and refinement. And I let people know that if you've booked a service with me or a session with me and you refer someone else to me and they pay for and book a session, you get a complimentary 30-minute burning question reading with me.
Hot dog.
Yeah, that's an ongoing promotion that I do. It doesn't matter, like it's like an ongoing indefinite promotion. So anyone who books with me has had a service with me and then tells their friends like, yay, Truthseeker Astrology was great. And then they're like, ooh, I want to find out more about Truthseeker Astrology. And they come to me and they book a session, they pay for it, we have it. I go to that person who referred them and I say, guess what? You get a session, 30-minute session. Aren't you excited? And that is
excited.
I'd be excited.
I mean, it's a great incentive. Like I've had paid clients, like they're like getting a little crazy with it, but they're like, I'm telling all my friends, because I want another session. I want a free session with you, even if it's 30 minutes, So that's something that I do to thank my clients for their service and for spreading the word. Because honestly, like I feel like my practice, because I have, the moon ruling my chart, I feel like the practice needs to be built by word of mouth, through relationships, through, people connecting. I want people to feel like I care about them, I care about their issues, and I want to treat them like people who are really pushing to grow and evolve and not stay stagnant and not feel hopeless and not feel like all the emotions that I think we feel when we're deciding, I'm going to book a session. I got to figure all this mess out. I don't understand. You want to go to someone who has been there and understands the struggle, but has unlocked certain tools to be able to, figure some stuff out and figure out, I do have what it takes to kind of get myself out of this. If I want to do the work, yeah, I can make some changes. That's what my teacher told me. He was like, you'd be a great astrologer, Tieshka, if you study. And I'm like, oh, you just said a word.
You just said study. I'm out.
I'm like, study. I can study. I'm going to show you, and that was like the thing that got me going. That motivated me more than anything.
Wow, you are a Virgo. I guess I'm also a Virgo, so every time you say something, I'm like, yeah. Every time I'm like, yeah. Oh, look, motivation to make things better and fix problems. Yep.
Yep.
Checkbox. Yeah. So, Cara, did you have that last question from Facebook that you wanted to ask before we?
Yes. No. I'm sorry. I was so now it's always like 5 minutes ago, and I'm like, okay, I have 10 questions now.
Yeah.
Okay. Question from Facebook was: have you ever had a chart say something that you couldn't bring yourself to tell the client?
Oh, that's a great question. Fortunately, no, but I have had charts of family members that had some sensitive aspects that, yeah.
No, I you know what? You say that, and I have a friend who is a medium, and she will not read me or do anything for me. She says, we are too close. It's just not, it's not good. Like, she'll tell me something if I need to know, but it's the same thing. She keeps it. She's like, I don't read for people that are that close to me, because you get something and you're just like, you feel torn, and it's so personal. And so I totally get that. Yeah. I try to not be alarmist. I'm honest, but I'm not alarmist. Mm-hmm.
And, typically when you decide to go see a psychic or see an astrologer or see a body worker, you already have an idea. You may not be able to articulate what's going on, but you have something in you that says something is out of whack. Something's not right. And either I'm not necessarily ready to name it, or I'm not necessarily ready to face it. I just want someone to kind of validate for me what I'm feeling. And, I will go there to like the river's edge without saying, well, specifically, explicitly in your chart is a Mars-Pluto aspect that, if you... And then they're afraid to go outside, I'm
not leaving the house.
And it's her fault. I'm a recluse now because she told me Mars and Pluto, so so I'm like, I try to frame the language in a way that doesn't raise the hairs on people's, the backs of their necks, because people are already vulnerable, when they come to us. They're not, they're not in the best, they're not, it's like when you wake up in the morning, you're not your best when you wake up in the morning.
Well, they're also coming to get answers to questions, and they're expecting, I'm having a session, I paid for this, I want answers.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I'm not only focused on answers, I'm focused on, okay, what can you do as a next step? Let's talk about next steps. You have answers, but how do you make this actionable? How can you go forward and do one or two small things to help move you in a different direction? And having them reflect on that is even more important to me than being like, oh, you have Saturn ruling the 10th house. What does that mean to someone who, might be having problems at home? That's not going to mean anything, It's got to be targeted. It's got to be smart. But I think it also needs to be, it also needs to have a warmth to it. It's got to, you got to connect with people. So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because if you don't connect to them, you're when you're talking to them, you might as well be talking to a wall. Exactly. Because it's not going to, you could tell somebody everything in the world, but if you don't connect with them and kind of mesh and show them, what it is that you're telling them and using those tools, it's not going to help.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's where my teacher and I we kind of went our separate ways because of that. His strength is in mundane astrology, and I, love using astrology to talk about world events and things like that. I think at the end of the day, my calling is to help individual people. And my calling is to, assist regular people who are just trying to make it day by day. There's nothing I can do about Donald Trump or whatever.
Do you ever take the time to do a chart for somebody like that where you're just like, wow, this guy's like dominating the news. Let me find out what's making him tick.
Well, at my workshop I did, and the videos on my website, I talked about Donald Trump's chart. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to have to go watch that because I didn't.
That was interesting. Yeah.
Oh, boy. All right, I have to go find that one. But, all right, we are almost out of time. So thank you so much for spending your evening with us. One more time, it is truthseekerastrology.com.
Yes.
If you are in the Parax chat room, I put the link in there. But all of the information about Tieshka's services and, more information about her in general is available there. You can book right away. Make sure you tell her you heard her on the Shadows. And then we get our free reading that way, right?
Yes.
Woohoo. All right. Danielle Stimson doesn't get any. We get it. Putting that out there. She doesn't get nothing.
Well, Danielle's my roommate, so yeah.
Ah.
Oh, man.
See, she doesn't need any then. She got you all the time.
So we're always trading.
That's awesome, though.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you again for spending your evening with us. We have to kind of wrap it up and hand the mics off. But again, that is truthseekerastrology.com. Make sure you check it out. Get your charts read. Let us know how it goes, too. If you, really get a good reading, get an awesome revelation. We want to know about all that kind of stuff. So make sure you let us know. So as always, I'm Rebecca.
I'm Cara.
And we'll see you in the shadows.